Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to this explainer where we take complex source materials and break them down into clear, structured insights that you can actually use. Today, we're unpacking the fascinating, highly strategic trajectory of Amit Shah. We're talking about a figure whose organizational frameworks have directly impacted the governance of over 1 billion people. Widely recognized across the entire political spectrum, he really isn't just a politician. He's an electoral strategist with a win rate that's practically unprecedented in modern democratic history, and he currently holds immense administrative responsibilities. So whether you're studying political science, you're obsessed with organizational structures, or you're just looking to understand the real nuts and bolts of Indian democracy, mapping out his evolution is absolutely essential. Let's get right to it.
Here's our roadmap for today. We've got 6 parts: early life and origins, entering the political arena, the electoral mastermind, rise to national leadership, challenges in public discourse, and finally, legacy in Indian politics. Section 1. Early life and origins, the formative years in Gujarat. So he was born in Mumbai in 1964, but his story quickly shifts to Gujarat. The source material highlights that he came from a prominent business family, and this specific socio-cultural environment during his childhood and early education was absolutely foundational. Actually, it was here that he developed this highly pragmatic, strictly numbers-driven approach to problem solving. You know, when we look at major political figures, we often just skip straight to their time in office. But mapping out these youth and formative years in Ahmedabad, that's crucial. It gives us the essential context for the deeply localized grassroots understanding that he would rely on so heavily later in life. Moving on to Part 2, entering the political arena, from student politics to the BJP. Right, so his entry into politics was definitely not some overnight leap into high office. It started firmly on the ground. The early years were defined by active participation in the student organization, ABVP, and that is classic, grueling grassroots training. From there, the next phase was formally joining the Bharatiya Janata Party, or the BJP, in the late 1980s. But the key takeaway from our sources here is what happened in those subsequent years. It was a steady, totally methodical increase in organizational responsibilities. He basically immersed himself in the machinery of the party, working side by side with ground-level workers, learning the architecture of political mobilization from the absolute bottom up.
The central term you need to understand his early career is organization building. But what does that actually mean in practice? Well, it's the methodical process of mobilizing grassroots workers, structuring local committees, and establishing a unified framework for political action. But honestly, more than anything, it's logistics. It is the unglamorous behind-the-scenes work of making sure there's a dedicated worker at every single street corner, in every single neighborhood. His early career was intensely focused on this exact meticulous process, literally empowering party workers to create a tight, unified structure out of a massive, incredibly diverse population.
Section 3. The electoral mastermind, engineering campaign strategies. Our sources break down his wildly effective campaign strategy into 3 core steps. Step 1 is booth-level grassroots organization. This is micromanagement at its finest. He famously utilized strategies like the Pana Pramukh model. That's where one specific worker is put in charge of just one single page of the voter list. Crazy attention to detail, right? Then, Step 2, high-level strategic meetings. This is where that hyper-local data collides with national political theory and advanced analytics. Finally, Step 3 is the orchestration of mass public rallies and campaigns. It's this massive logistical undertaking that blends deep, street-level knowledge with sweeping national narratives to mobilize voters at a scale we've rarely seen. Over time, his reputation was built strictly on this electoral management and unparalleled organizational capacity. Throughout this phase, his entire political identity became fundamentally intertwined with his ability to manage incredibly complex, large-scale election landscapes. A perfect example of this is the 2014 general elections. His strategic oversight in states like Uttar Pradesh secured a massive 71 out of 80 seats for his party. To put that into perspective, that kind of sweep cemented his title as the architect, the guy who could look at a vast, chaotic electoral map and engineer a highly structured, actionable pathway to victory. Chapter 4. Rise to National Leadership, from State Strategist to Central Administrator. As he moved to the center, his portfolio expanded dramatically. We're talking about going from serving as the national president of the BJP all the way to becoming the Union Home Minister. The responsibilities totally shifted. The sources document his heavy involvement in leading high-level government meetings
overseeing massive national public programs and executing major, historically significant policy initiatives, including sweeping internal security overhauls. We're looking at a very clear transition here. It's a leap from managing millions of party workers to managing the actual state apparatus of the world's largest democracy.
Now, the insight here is actually quite profound. Think about the shift from being a party architect to actively shaping national policy and administration. The skill set required to win a high-stakes election, it's very different from the skill set required to run a massive, complex bureaucracy. His focus had to completely broaden from purely political maneuvering to executing critical, day-to-day administrative functions. It proves a level of adaptability that is just absolutely essential for long-term survival at the very apex of national politics. Section 5. Challenges and Public Discourse. A balanced view of a complex career. Every major political figure faces intense scrutiny, and to be truly objective, we have to look at the full picture here. On one side, supporters heavily praise his efficient organizational genius, his strong, unwavering leadership, and what they see as decisive contributions to the nation's overall progress and security. But on the flip side, critics point to heavy scrutiny over specific decisions made during his tenure, various political controversies, and past legal cases. By looking closely at both of these perspectives, we get a complete, impartial picture of the public dialogue surrounding him. We aren't here to endorse either viewpoint, but simply to explain that his career exists right in the tension between these two very strong perspectives.
Which brings us to a perfect summary from our source material, a political life that remains a continuous subject of public debate, scrutiny, and profound influence. Regardless of where one stands on the political spectrum, the absolute scale of his impact is undeniable. His decisions, his ground strategies, and his administrative actions are constantly debated for one simple reason. They carry profound weight in shaping the lives of over 1 billion people every single day.
Finally, Section 6. Legacy in Indian Politics. Impact on the political landscape.
So, what is his overall footprint? First off, he is universally recognized as a master organizational architect. Period. Second, he is undeniably a defining figure in modern Indian politics. The history of this era simply cannot be written without a central focus on his actions and his strategies. And third, because of the sheer effectiveness of his methods, he's a continuous subject of study for political strategists globally. Basically, anyone trying to understand how to mobilize millions of people within a democratic framework eventually has to sit down and study his blueprints.
Before we wrap this up, just a quick reminder. This explainer is strictly for educational purposes. It's based entirely on publicly available sources and does not support or oppose any political ideology. Our mission here is always focused on clear, objective learning.
So I'll leave you with this question. How does the scale of organizational strategy ultimately shape the future and direction of a democracy? When we look at Amit Shah's journey, we see that democracy isn't just about high-minded ideals. It is heavily, heavily reliant on the literal mechanics of organization. The structures built on the ground today are exactly what dictate the policies of tomorrow. Think about that like a giant puzzle as you continue to observe the political landscapes around you. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep questioning, keep learning.